Hi, everyone. It is Katie Harris, CEO and owner of Nursepreneurs, here with my colleague.
I'm Jill Weberding, and I'm CEO and founder of Nurse Assure.
Thank you so much for being here, everybody. So today we wanted to talk about everybody's favorite topic, getting rich quickly. So,
Mm.
we talked about this a little bit and what it means to get rich quick. And I have to say that to this day, even though I know better, it still appeals to me, and it's really hard to fight the get rich quick kind of like idea. Like if I just do this one thing, I can get rich quickly, and it never, ever, ever has ever panned out for me. But let's talk a little bit about the kind of the concept of the get rich quick and what's behind it and what's motivating us, and then some of the things we'll talk about some of the things that lure people in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the equivalent of the easy button, or it's what we see as the easy button that we're looking for. We just want it to be, you know, low or no risk, minimal risk, and it already wrapped up in a tiny box for us. And if we just do this, then it just, you're obviously going to get the same result as, the person who's pitching you the get rich quick.
Yeah, and we see this a lot in business in a box type of
Yes.
businesses where it's like, here's your business model and it's all done for you, and now all you have to do is share it with your friends and family. And why doesn't that work? Why isn't it as easy as that? Why can't it just be that easy?
Yeah, because business isn't easy, right? I mean, it can be simple, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. And the best example that I usually give around this is you can have a gym that has all the bells and whistles and all the programs, classes, all the equipment, and one person who goes to that gym will knock it out of the park. They show up every day. They are super dedicated and committed, and they will lose all the weight they want and have this huge change in, their life. And another person will join the same gym, have access to the same stuff, and they don't, they never show up. Maybe they go once. And so then they are like, well, I'm not getting the results that that they got. And it has nothing to do with the business. So whether you're starting from scratch or you're starting in the box, your results are going to be completely dependent on you, right? That's InnerGame.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, there is that kind of, and I have seen, people will say, oh, I'll put your business together in a day or 2 days or whatever. But, ultimately what it comes down to is, okay, so all the marketing's done, the branding's done, like all of that stuff, it might be a little overwhelming, but that's not the hard part. That's the stuff
No,
we kind of like hide behind, and pretend that we can't go out and sell something because we don't have a logo or because our website's not finished yet or that kind of stuff.
distraction from the actual
Distractions.
work,
Yeah.
right?
So what is the actual work?
So mostly the actual work is this. It's inner game. It's all the roadblocks, it's the limiting beliefs that you have. It's the, willingness to get out of your comfort zone and, getting past your fear of failure and inner critic to actually do what it is that you want to do. Because most people that I have met, they didn't they're not dreaming of starting an MLM company, or not joining an MLM type of business in a box. And we, again, I've had, I mean, I've been part of those. Like, believe me, I'm not kiboshing, a different method or style of business, but you need to understand what you're in if you're going for joining one of those types of businesses. You have no control over the product, you have no control over the marketing, you have no control over the price. And, you on a dime, and I have seen this happen, they can actually switch the whole payment model, and that is supposedly your livelihood. So it does sound like an easy button, which I think is what makes it so attractive, because it's less scary if all these things are already taken care of and I can just hit the ground running. But it's never quite that simple, right? I mean, has that been your experience too?
Yeah, and I would say from the MLM experience too, the problem is that there's no point of differentiation. So, a Rodan and Fields seller, if you're selling Rodan and Fields and I'm selling Rodan and Fields, the difference between us isn't Rodan and Fields. The difference
Right.
between us is who likes you more than they like me.
Yeah.
So, basically it comes down to selling yourself. And I think part of that's the way you're going to, if you're going to be successful in MLM, that's how it's done. It's by selling kind of your lifestyle, which I think is a harder business to do,
Right.
than anything else,
Well,
because you have to sell what you're doing.
and then you always, the reality is of those businesses and the companies, I think for the most part, do a pretty good job, or as much as they can, of like stopping people from selling on eBay and stopping people from selling on Amazon and all these things. But there's always going to be someone who undercuts you, who does a flash sale or who hosts more parties or whatever it is, because like you said, there's no differentiation. So they're trying to create it somehow, but the reality, like it's usually tactics that aren't sustainable in the long run. And so like that's why we see, I've talked to so many, colleagues who have like they've done this as a side gig, and they would get all excited and they start to, join, and they get, a lot of momentum, and they build, and then all of a sudden, like that everything that they built kind of starts to disintegrate, right? Because you have to keep building the whole, time, whether it's customers or team members or whatever. It's a very different model, and you're doing all of that, and there certainly are people who are incredibly successful in those frameworks, but it's a sliver of percentage, and the company will tell you that, that if you're in the sliver of percentage, and you're still only getting what, like 25 or 30%, because it's not your company, it's not your, you've bought into the franchise or the business in a box. So if you're going to work that hard, imagine what you would have brought home if it would have been 100%.
Right, because if you're going to do an influencer's status, if you want to sell something, and you can certainly sell other people's products,
Sure.
um, and that would be affiliate marketing, which is different
Totally
than
different.
MLM, yes. But you're still selling a lifestyle, and you're selling yourself. So the concept here is, if you're going to do something like that, to um, it's a lot of work. It's a whole lot of work. So you might get the business in a box model, but then you have to put in so much effort. And I think, Jill, what you're saying is, if you're selling kind of your own thing or your own products, or do the affiliate marketing with other people's products, because you have an audience, you get to keep a much larger percentage. So if you're doing affiliate marketing, it could be that you keep 50 or 70% of the
Right.
profits. Whereas the MLM, you start out at like 5%, but you still have to do 100% of the marketing. And
Right.
that's where that kind of discrepancy is like, and I didn't necessarily want to make this an anti-MLM thing, but it's one of those
Yeah,
things that,
yeah, I'm
yeah,
not, certainly, but you need to know what business you're in, right? And I think that's the really tricky part, is that the lure of that is strong because the business in the box is already taken care of. And what we don't really realize is the work, like, then the work starts. Like, you're not getting out of the work. All the work is still there on the other end of that, but you're doing it all for a fraction of the cost because you bought into the business in a box, right? So if you're going to do all of the work of marketing and trying to somehow differentiate yourself using somebody else's products, you're doing all that work. The question is, again, is that different than if you were doing it for yourself, your own services, your own whatever? You would be getting 100% of that.
right. And I would argue too that there's not actually that many different business models to begin with. So I think when people approach business, they're like, oh, there's like 1 million things that I could do. And the fact is, there's not. You can consult, you can coach, and you can sell like retail stuff. Like, there's
Yep.
very few things that you
Courses.
actually
Yep.
do. There's a million different ways to do
To do
it.
them.
Right, but the business model, the number of business models that are out there is very small. So it's really about choosing which business model fits you and your personality and what you want to do. adding your flavor to, the coaching. Let's say you want to be a coach. Who do you want to coach? What are we going to offer these people? What are we going to price it at? How are we going to position ourselves? All that stuff can be figured. I mean, we could figure that out in one call. And
Right.
then you start the
Then the work.
marketing. Right. Then the work begins. And that's the thing that kills me in a lot of my programs, because people will stall on putting the business together. And I'm like, come on, guys, this is the
This is
easy part.
this is the easiest part. The
Yeah.
packaging your services, which a lot of people get hung up on. And the reason they get hung up on it is because of inner game issues, because they have money mindset issues, because they have imposter syndrome, because they have inner critic, because they don't, they're afraid of failing and they're afraid to put themselves out there. All those inner game issues, that's what actually stops them from packaging the services and figuring out what the business looks like. But that's truly, like you said, that's the easiest part.
Yeah. And I mean, that's where I would say something like, and I think this is, like you're saying with the inner game, something that a Rodan and Fields or whatever, for some reason,
Travel,
they're
I
like,
mean, there's
yeah, they're
all
stuck in
kinds
my
of,
mind. I can't think of another company for the moment, but
yeah,
what is really appealing about them is that they're a legitimate company and they are giving you permission to go ahead and start this business.
yeah,
And I think that's the one thing that a lot of us lack, or new entrepreneur. I don't want to say nurses because it's not a nurse issue; it's a new entrepreneur issue. Is that we're like, oh, but can I go out and teach? Am I qualified? Is
yeah,
somebody going to certify me? Who's going to say that this is okay? And that's what those companies, the business in the box does. It says, okay, you paid for the business, you're approved, you go out and do it.
yeah,
And you don't need that permission. You need to give it to yourself, but
yeah.
nobody can give that to you.
Yeah. And Meredith said the same thing. She's like chimed in, agreed. Most business models are the same. You are the difference. And when you have the same exact, when you have that same exact product, exact, structure, same price, same everything, it's even harder to differentiate yourself. And so you can do that, attempt to do that through lifestyle. And that's usually what is done. But, if you say, well, look at me, I'm working from home, I'm working from the beach, or I'm working from my poolside, but you could be posting the same thing. So there's still not differentiation, right? So like when you're doing your own, when you create something from your own, it really truly is your unique to you, because of your experience, because of your style, because of your personality. You're infusing that into your solution. So it literally changes that there is no true duplicate of you. And so it's much easier when it comes to marketing and messaging to differentiate yourself compared to other competitors
Right.
versus a business in a box.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, yeah, so what would you say that, uh, like, if nurses wanted to start a business, like, what would be kind of like the first things that you would want to work out before moving forward?
Yeah. So I always start out with getting clear on what it is that you want. And for some people who are just looking to get rid of the overtime, get rid of taking the extra shifts, getting rid of the second job, then maybe truly that business in a box is the right model for you. Or maybe creating a course and running that on your own, is a way to supplement your income, to, to get rid of those extra shifts or the overtime. So let's be clear on what your goal is. You really don't start a true business from scratch. That there's a difference between a business and a hobby. So you have to decide, what is it that I want my life to look like? Is this, how much time am I going to dedicate to it? And then that will help you shape what model I'm going to pick that aligns and matches with that. Because what we see a lot of times is people will say they want to start a business, but the reality is they want off the unit, right? Like they just want to get out of inpatient nursing. Well, I mean, we could have an hour conversation just about that. And I can give you, all the different options in nursing that are not as a floor nurse on the hospital unit. There's tons and tons of options. So again, what is it that you actually want? We've got to get clear on that from the beginning. And I definitely, take anybody that I work with, whether it's one-on-one or in our courses, that's the absolute first step. Because unless we're clear, we don't know where to go, right? We don't
Yeah.
know what to shape. We don't know, I can't give you any guidance or feedback or recommendations. If it is, I don't know what you want. And for some people, they truly don't know what they want. So you have to sit in the silence a little bit and figure that out.
Yeah, and that's a conversation I have a lot of times with nurses. It's just kind of like, do you want to have an impact regardless if you make money, or do you want to have, time and freedom,
Yeah.
but not put all this extra time and effort in. There's a huge difference between wealth building and entrepreneurialism, and being an entrepreneur doesn't mean you make a lot of money. It means that you are making an impact on a lot of people.
You
So
can make
you
a lot of money,
you
but you need to
can
set
make a
your
lot of
model up
money.
higher,
Yeah.
right? So
And
again, it's like, what is your goal? Is it a revenue goal that's most important? Is it an impact goal that's most important? Are you solving a gap in the market that you literally just can't stomach anymore? That's, I think, usually what drives many entrepreneurs. Many of the nurses that I've worked, they literally have been in the trenches and they physically can't stomach the gap anymore.
right.
They feel compelled to find a solution and help close that gap, whether that's for patients or their coworkers or whoever it is. And so that is truthfully the biggest driver that I've seen with the nurses that I've worked with is they can't stomach the gap anymore. They know that they could make an impact. They were kind of hanging out, hoping somebody else, anybody else going to fix this because this is terrible, right? Like
Well,
everybody
it's like,
knows.
and we've talked to those nurses too. Like when
Yeah,
Brad was on, like he went and learned like CSS coding
yeah,
and all that kind of stuff. And I see Valerie's on the call, and she is a nurse down here in Mexico with me, and she actually had to learn Spanish and then
yeah.
get a degree, her license in the country of Mexico in order to do what it is that she's doing. She's doing concierge nursing down here in the Riviera Maya. So, I mean, she had to overcome some pretty incredible obstacles. Like, I think I might have given up, to be honest, but like, that is pretty impressive.
But there's no quick fix. Like if you really want to, I think is we're trying to help bring to light that there is no easy button. Like even business in a box is not an easy button. The logistics are there for you so you know where you're starting, but then the work starts, right? It still is hard. You still have to dedicate time and carve out time and do all the marketing and all the things that you need to do in order to actually be successful in that and know your percentages of what you're making for the time that you're swapping for that. So is it worth it? Is that what you want? Is it going to help you meet your revenue impact, goals? I don't know, but that's why you need to get clear. Or is it that you're going to do, something like what Valerie's doing, where she's like, okay, this is what I am meant for. I know, I'm really passionate about this. This is what I want to do. This is the lifestyle I want to have. And I'm going to hit a lot of roadblocks, but I'm not in it for a hobby. I'm not like putting one foot in and one foot out. I'm all in and I'm going to, figure it out.
Yeah, and I've definitely had this conversation too with nurses where they love their MLM product and they want to incorporate that, and I think that's
Yep.
great. Like I think absolutely, let's incorporate it into whatever it is that you're doing, but that's not like we're not going to build your website around MLM. Like they'll give
No,
you the MLM website, but it's just it looks like everybody else's website.
cookie cutter.
So yeah, and Jessica was a good example of this because she did Juice Plus and
Yeah,
really liked that and wanted to incorporate it. But the message was bigger, right? The message
yeah,
that she had that she wanted to talk about was bigger than the juicing, whatever it was. So, she wanted to work with medically fragile children and have a homeopathic or holistic,
solution.
solution for them. And the juicing for her was a big part of that, but it was only a sliver. So it's kind of
Yeah,
like, all right, well, you have a bigger message, you have a bigger, kind of framework, and we can do coaching and we can do these things and we can sell Juice Plus or whatever it is. I forget what it was, but that can be a piece of it. It just,
yeah.
it's so hard to just sell that as the whole pie.
That you almost think of in that scenario, it's almost like an affiliate with that product, right? It would be no different than being an affiliate with something else. But that if you're interested in this, I also have, here you can buy it from me, if you want to incorporate that. But that's not the bulk of the business. It's the coaching, it's the courses, it's the consulting, whatever it is that she's doing. That's the actual business and message that she is focused on. And it's like, well, I also have this, and it supports that if you are interested, but it's
Right.
not, this is what I
Yeah.
do. Right
And
here.
again, we see that a lot with again with cannabis, so there's a lot of people selling CBD oil, but just to sell CBD
Yeah.
oil is just kind of like, it feels, I don't know. Yeah, when people start hacking CBD oil, they're just like, no, 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 no. But then, the funny thing is that working with the cannabis nurses on their websites and all that kind of stuff, I've gotten to know them, and they've taught me so much that
Yes.
I actually buy CBD from their websites because
Right.
I trust them and I know them, and I'm like, oh, this person is like really amazing. So,
And that's another great example of a cannabis nurse who is basically doing a ton of education about all CBD oils are not created equal. There's different formulations, and what would you use? You would use this for this issue. You would use this formulation for this issue. They would help you titrate doses because you're not just going to a dispensary and looking at the menu and ordering eggs. That's what is typically done with just the box, business in a box type of model of, oh, I'm selling oil. Well, excuse me, what do I like? How do I manage that? That's the difference between a cannabis nurse who also, these are also products that I have researched, trust, know the ingredients, organic, and they can, it checks all the boxes that they would be looking for themselves. And then they can help coach their, clients and customers on, again, this is what you need to look for. If you want, here's what, here are some different options. And I happen to have those if you want to buy them from me. But every cannabis nurse that I have met and worked with, again, the products are not their main part of their business. It just happens to be, I'm coaching all these clients and they also are asking me, can I just buy it from you? Because I know, like, and trust you. You've given me all this information. And so if you sell it, I would rather support you than who knows what, somewhere else.
right. And that's the whole part of it is like that, whether you're MLM, business in a box, affiliate marketing, building your own business, it's, getting out there and networking with people, getting them to trust you and know you and want to work with you. And then, I mean, you could sell them the Brooklyn Bridge, basically, like that.
Yeah.
You know, you could certainly do a lot of stuff. You could sell basically what you want to sell because you've created that bond, but it's that bond that takes the longest. It's the hardest and it's the most work. So when I see, so I have a friend that does the Rhododendron Fields, and she spends hours and hours and hours on like social media and doing videos and whatnot for just like a fraction of the price, and that is the whole business.
Yeah.
And I actually did convert her to IV hydration, where she could add this as a supplement that
Yeah.
she has. But
And we've seen nurses who are in aesthetics who like, oh, then they, want to add a skincare product, whatever it is, into their, aesthetics or spa business. Like that totally makes sense. It's a supporting feature versus the entire business. I have a nurse practitioner friend who really got into one of the health and wellness companies, MLMs, and she posted again a lot, just spent a lot of time on videos posting. I really researched this. I'm a nurse practitioner. I care very much about safety of products and this and that. And she went all in. She built up this great, side business for herself. And on a dime, the company changed the payment, the compensation package, and she was like, done. And so it's like, well, now what happens? Like she was suddenly starting back at zero after she had done this for a year. So like, would it have been a better model to have a health and wellness coaching business on the side that she could have offered supplements, and then that may come and go. Those may change as new things come out, as her interest or research or whatever changes, but she wouldn't have lost all this time and effort coaching on health and wellness as the model.
yeah, because it's hard to go from you have to have this product, I use this product, to okay, I don't use this product
Oh,
anymore.
just
Just
kidding.
kidding.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
kidding. This is the new thing. and
Yeah,
and
no, I like this one. It's the same
we
exact thing, but different name.
Yeah, and we see that, right? That really messes with your head. It really messes with your confidence. It messes with your imposter syndrome. It messes with your inner critic, because now you're like afraid to put yourself back out there again, because you now are known as the person who hops from this to this to this to this. And, each one of them were the thing that we promoted and got the whatever, bullhorn or whatever to like, this is it. Everyone has to, and it's so great. And then like, so it does, it shakes your confidence and your willingness to put yourself out there versus when you tie yourself to a product that can change. When you tie yourself to you, like if you create the business out of you, your nursing skills, your experience, your expertise, that never goes away. It's
Right.
never going to change. It's only going to enhance,
Right.
right? So like it's a totally different business model, and you can be successful in any one you pick, but you need to know and understand what you're aligning with from the beginning,
Right.
right?
Right. No, it is true. And again, with my friend that does Rodan, like she's the Rodan and Fields girl. Like I know her as a Rodan and Fields girl. So God forbid that goes away because,
You
she
don't
would
even know
lose
what her name
everything.
is.
Yeah. She
I
would
mean,
lose
that's true.
everything.
Like
Yeah. I
they're
mean,
like,
she
"Who
can't just switch
celebrity
skincare products like, on a dime like that. But if she did have an overarching, skincare, um, you know, framework that she was working off of, and she did this on the side and maybe offered some other things as well, just to kind of like not put all your eggs in a basket, so to speak.
right?"
But
That can be changed without any say from you. Like that's the other struggle is you can invest all this time, energy, work building something up, and when you bought into an MLM like that, you have no say on the pricing. You have no say on the product. They can eliminate things that were your best sellers, and now all of a sudden you're like, now what?
yeah,
Like you don't have a lot of them have restrictions on how you can and can't market. So you have all these restrictions that just, yes, the logistics are there from the beginning, but you need to keep in mind that that can change at any point in time, and you could essentially be back to ground zero.
yeah, and that's if you remember in January, way back in January, when we met with Surya Sparks, and Surya
Yes,
is um, not just Singapore's, but Asia's like top number one MLM, 0.1% of 1% of 1%, like making 8 figures a year. And what she told us was exactly what we're talking about, is that she never, ever sells the product. She
never,
always sells herself because she has changed multiple products. She has changed it
over and
over and
over
over.
again.
And she said the reason that she did that was because she did get burnt, and her whole entire business was completely destroyed by exactly what you're saying.
Yep. It happens all the time. It
Yeah.
happens all the time. So just be mindful of that. If you want to get into that model, I strongly recommend that you build something around it as more of the center or the focus. If you're really trying to make this your thing, your full-time thing, then really think about building something around that, and that being just a piece, a small piece, a supporting piece, because it can vanish on a dime. Versus, or if it is that you know what your goals are, if you sit in the silence and know that you really are just trying to make X dollars to get rid of your extra shifts, then that might be the perfect solution for you, because you can only put in this much time and, do that kind of thing. But the clarity is, critical. And haven't you seen, Katie, like I think that's kind of why we're so aligned too. And what we do is that it's really about expanding the vision of nurses, because when we figure out, we talk to nurses all the time, and I'm like, why don't you just create a course with you've been, 20 years in this specialty. Why not just teach a course about that? And it's like that would never enter their mind that was even a possibility. And I'm like, you don't have to buy anything. You could just package your own skills. Like, just start there. Like, have you thought about orientation or teaching at a community, teaching a community program? There's so many options for nurses that we really need to expand the vision of what's possible for us with the current skill set and experience that we have. You don't need a business in a box, truthfully. Like, you could be running and making that kind of income off of your own skills and experience by, creating a course or doing some coaching or mentoring, paid mentoring. Like, you've got everything you need if that's what you really want to do. You just have to expand your thinking a little bit.
Absolutely. All right, Jill. So let's sum it up. How do we get rich quick? in less than 30 seconds.
I know you rob a bank. Like if you want to get rich quick, that you're like breaking the law. Okay, it's a Ponzi scheme. Like just be careful. There is no easy button when it comes to business, and those who tout that, I would say that should be the biggest red flag of the I replace my income in 3 months, I replace my income in the first year, I make X, thousands of dollars a month. That should be like a neon flashing sign to run the other direction. All right. Because they're making money off the getting you in part, not they're not speaking to, I've helped so and so who's, doing successful programs here and who's running, all, typically most mentors and coaches talk about what their students have done, like who they have helped and what they're doing out in the world. And that those results reflect on the leader versus I make that's that easy button lure. And it gets a lot of people for sure, but it rarely works out that way.
All right, Jill. Thank you, everybody. We will see you next Tuesday for another episode of the Inner Game.
All right. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Kate.